Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a special episode of AI and Go to Market. Today, I have someone special on the show, someone that I get to see every single day. Probably I see him more than anyone in my life. Alex Choi, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Do you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, coming up on my year mark at Hockey Stack. Had a couple of years started my career at Carta for a few years, made the jump over to a startup, landed at Hockey Stack last July. Yeah, it's been a wild ride ever since.
Whenever I meet someone new, like sales leader or even like anyone in my life, and they ask about our SDR team or our sales team, I always say we have one of the best SDR teams in the world, a top 1% team. And you architected that. You started as, our head of sales development, but the first couple months you were on the trenches, you were dialing, you were booking meetings. That was something that I made really clear because it's a brand new team. So you need to be the SDR before you get into leadership, which you have done successfully. What do you think? This is going to be like more of an overview and then we can dig deeper. What do you think makes our SDR team really successful, from like personalities all the way to structure, all the way to tech? You can take it any way that you want.
I think first and foremost, the team culture that we set up, we have the company culture and then we have the SDR team culture. The way that we came up with that culture from day one, I think was by far the most important piece. And you see a lot of teams as they grow and as they continue to grow, that culture starts to break for whatever reason. Either it be new leader joins or new reps join, certain SDRs move on to the AE team. Things always end up creating issues with that. But we've made a tremendous effort to make sure that the culture remains. And because of this culture, and for those that want to know what the culture is for the SDR team, we had to put into two words. It would be super pumped intensity and always moving with an extreme sense of urgency. And it's not going to be the right fit for most people, but it's just, I always say this to reps, you can be a different shade, but it's important that you have reps that are at least the same color as the company. Otherwise, it's just, you're always going to have high churn with the reps. It may seem like it's working in the beginning and then that stress is going to constantly build up. But that extreme sense of urgency that is required to be successful at a startup today, because outbound is so hard, is the reason why we're able to book the amount of meetings that we're booking today, move at the speed that we're able to move at. There's still a lot of things that we have to smooth out. But yeah, I can confidently say that it's not because it's just my team, but confidently say that as we come up on our year mark, there's not a lot of teams that are going to be pumping out the numbers that we are after just 12 months of the inception of Outbound, for sure.
So it's mainly the biggest piece is culture.
100%.
How do you look for culture in interviews? How do you interview for culture?
I think it's just asking hard questions. You see a lot of hiring managers or even recruiters, they try to sugarcoat the questions, especially if they know that they're in front of a high caliber talent, right? Because they want to capture them. But that never works out, because after they are in seat, you can't hold on to them because they quickly realize that this is not a fit for them. So just asking hard questions, as transparent as possible from the very first conversation. An example would be, my favorite question would be, like, Amir, what would you say what kind of environment takes out the best in you and what kind of environment takes the worst out of you? Just asking that one simple question, I'll be able to know immediately if this person is going to be a fit or not. And just because if they say, I hate being micromanaged, because if you have a team that has a high sense of intensity, people often associate that with micromanagement. And it was similar to like that post you sent me yesterday. Striking that balance is super important. That's the role of the leader, so that people do not get burnt down. They don't have this sense of the grim reaper behind their shoulder every single day. But there has to be a certain expectation that if you are not performing or if you're struggling for whatever reason, giving you full autonomy to an SDR, 9 times out of 10 always results in a negative outcome. And so if I am 100%, if your success is 100% of my responsibility, and then there's going to be a little bit of micromanagement that's unavoidable. And so being extremely transparent with that in the interview is going to weed out the individuals that are just simply a different color.
So are you literally saying I will micromanage you? Or is there like a different way of saying it?
No, I think it's just like always try to tie it to an example. At a startup, some of the changes that we do would be changes that would be made every 2 years or so at a later stage company, like, for example, Carta. But for here, we're making 2 to 4 of those the changes once a quarter, right?
Yeah.
Those changes can be exhausting for the person that's not open to change. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I have yet to see an individual that has an extreme sense of ownership, urgency, intensity. That's what I consider to be, that I think is the requirements to become a very successful SDR in today's market if you're outbounding. And that 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 can't take that level of pressure. It's hard. I don't know, but just giving it just understanding, a good question, for example, would be, what is your understanding of working at a startup? Just hearing them out. And the paradigm example that people like to use for what is a startup is a lot of hours, a lot of work, wearing multiple hats and stuff like that. That's all true, but 90% of startups do not operate like that. And so just being really transparent, just be like, hey, this is like the misconception. All startups are like that. But working at Hockey Stack it's going to be intense. It's going to be demanding, if not one of the most demanding companies that you'll ever work for in your entire career. And just seeing the response from there instead of just saying, oh, expect to get micromanaged.
Yeah, that post I sent was, if anyone's curious, it's the Micromanagement blog article by Ben Horowitz on Henderson Horowitz's website. That's the post that he's referring to. I think micromanagement is a widely misunderstood concept. There are lots of founders that I talk to every day. Basically, they think they can hire SDRs, AEs, whatever that is like the initial team, and then they can give them like 100 target accounts and they can let them do whatever they want to do and then break into 20, 25%, 30% of those accounts. If maybe sometimes they expect them to break into all of those accounts if possible. I think what we mean by micromanagement, correct me if I'm wrong, is essentially we have a clear direction in our heads as leaders. We have a product vision, and we essentially let every single person in the team, especially our SDR team, know that this is the direction, this is why, ask us questions. Once everyone's on the same page, we will execute this. It's not like we give you accounts, you can do whatever you want. It's like, this is the direction. This is what we're selling. This is the language that we use in selling. And these are the tools. And this is everything that you have access to. Now go execute and then make money. And then make company money as well.
Exactly.
It's not, I'm sure a lot of people will think micromanagement is a bad company, a bad culture, all that stuff. It's not like looking over their shoulders and watching every single step. It's more, this is the vision. This is what we do. Are you okay with it? Are you on the same page? Do you have any questions, concerns? Okay, let's get that out of the way. And then we will execute.
Yeah. And to add on to that, I think if you have an SDR or any sales rep in general, you first give them the benefit of the doubt, right? You give them the autonomy. If they're struggling, I do everything in my power to get them to where they need to be. Now it's up to the rep to be able to execute, right? Really dig deep and work to improve. If there is no improvement, expect that autonomy will no longer exist, because it's not 2021 anymore, folks. You know what I mean? It's like you throw hundreds of thousands of people into a sequence, like an SCP, like Outreach or SalesLoft, has email steps embedded. You're like a startup. Your domain was created 1 year ago. You have the credit score of 500, equivalent to a credit score of 500 for your domain. And you expect your reps to blast out emails and book meetings through that. It's not going to happen anymore. And so it requires, the role has become exponentially more difficult to do outbound in general. And if you're not improving, expecting that magically within time that startups typically do not have, for that to happen is really low, really low. So you have to take over the wheel. And again, do it in an empathetic way. I think that's super important. So again, striking the balance, but it is required. A certain level of micromanagement.
Yeah. Talk about rep improvement, rep development. How do you develop or how do you improve as a leader? When you're on the field all the time, when you're not talking to people all the time, when you're not dialing all the time, which you cannot do as a leader, how do you develop as a leader?
That's a good question. It's hard. I think I'm coming up on 6 months now since I've been off the phone or in the trench, like full time. It's not talked about a lot, but this is for sure, I think, an internal fear that every sales leader, whether it be SDR leaders or AE leaders that are facing at any given time, is that when you're outside the trench for so long, it's just like a muscle. That muscle will die. And so you can only fall back on all the knowledge and experience that you've acquired thus far. But the only really way to continue to develop is constantly staying in touch with how the market is developing, new tools, especially towards GTM engineering, GTM operations. That's super huge for any sales leader today. And call recordings, tearing those down, it's helpful, but it will be never the same if you're actually in it, you running the deals or you running the cold calls yourself, because it will never be the same. So To answer your question, I don't think there is something that's ever going to come close as you being the executing rep as a leader. But you
Mm.
can do everything else, and you should, but it's never the same.
Yeah. One of the things that we really emphasize, you emphasize, which sometimes I push back on, sometimes isn't like every day, is our role plays. I'm not pushing back on role
Mhm.
plays, but why do we do a 30 to 45-minute role play every single day to start the day?
So there's two primary reasons for it. So for those out there, every single day, Monday through Friday, from 8:30 till 9 o'clock, 9:15, we do daily role play. It is required. It is, yeah, by 8:30 sharp. There's two primary reasons that we do it. Number one, first and foremost, you do not practice on the company's money. We run an end-to-end automation system here. Every contact that is queued up in a task that you connect with on your dialer is the company's money. It just didn't come out. It didn't exist. It didn't appear magically. And if your only form of practice is your dial blocks, it is not enough. The job is not that easy. And it's just like an athlete. Your only form of practice is at the champion game, and you're not doing anything else outside of those games. It's 100% the same. And again, it's like for the other 50% being when you say athletes, before they go into their workouts or before they go into trainings or the real game, we're always going to be warming up. An exact same thing. Right? You got to warm up your tongue a little bit, warm up your brain a little bit, right? You're groggy in the morning, a little jittery with the caffeine, right? So those two things are huge. And it's also huge for the leader too. I see a lot of leaders that enforce daily role plays, but they don't take part in it. I try my best. Sometimes it's super busy in the morning, but that's another form of getting as close as you can with you not actually being in the trench. Doing those daily role plays with your reps. Even me, like I mentioned, like I've been out of the game for about 6 months now, and I can already feel that I'm starting to get rusty. The most common objections, hey, not interested, right? We're set. Or, hey, can you circle back like in 3 to 4 months? Those common objections that the reps at this point are super sharp and smooth with, when we role play with them, I'm starting to fumble. I'm the one that's fumbling now. So it's so easy to drop the ball. But it's so important that leaders, reps do that every single day, especially if you're call heavy. Yeah.
Speaking of calls, why are we call heavy?
That's a great question. On LinkedIn, guys, like where people are always recommending like channels. Oh, like this is the email play that I ran. This is like the call play I ran. And you see all these people commenting, oh, send me the playbook, trying to find like this crazy play for LinkedIn or whatever. First and foremost, you need to understand, take it a step further with your ICP. We know our ICP is GTM. GTM practically lives off of LinkedIn. They are responsive on email, but they're significantly less responsive to email compared to, say, finance folks, legal folks, HR, for example. Calls just so happen to be much more better than LinkedIn. And it just so happens to be the bucket that we fall under. And we doubled down on that last July. And to be honest, I only sold into finance, legal, HR, never sold into GTM. I just hit the phones when I first got here because it was the fastest way for me to get a response, whether it be a positive one or a negative one, so that we can quickly iterate and test and continue with that path. But it just so happened, like, holy shit, calls is the best channel for us.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. I think one common misconception which I had when we first got started, and when today I think the same thing too. When you think I don't pick up the phone when I don't recognize the number or it's not a saved contact, so why would anybody pick up? It's not like that. There are a lot of people who pick
Mhm.
up the phone. One of our largest deals came from a cold call, which was like the first touch point was a cold call. There was no like marketing touch point or anything like
Yeah.
that. So I think calls are, yeah.
Yeah. To add on to your, like, there's always going to be individuals that will never be picking up the phone, no matter how many times you call them. There'll be the people that will never respond to email, no matter how many times you send them an email. And I'm guilty with that. Number three is no matter how many DMs you send them on LinkedIn, they'll never respond. So it's important that you have all three channels covered, right? You're running plays and campaigns for all three, but understand for your persona, which channels are they most receptive to and doubling down on those channels as the primaries.
Yeah. And then you can always, if someone has not picked up the phone 7 times, you can always architect a system where you can bring them to email, LinkedIn, whatever else you want to do. But I think another really cool aspect of cold calling is I did a webinar yesterday with Adam Robbins at RBB about like our on system, all of that stuff. One of the questions was like, if you launch a new product or if you do something new, what is the easiest way, or like, how can I get feedback from the market? I think that is the biggest use case for phones,
Yep.
like especially We have done this multiple times where we launch a new script or a
Hmm.
new way of talking about the product, or even a brand new product that we
Yep.
launched recently. Then you send emails and nobody responds. You don't really know if it's like deliverability issues. Is my email in spam box or
Yeah.
whatever else, or is it just not interesting, or did they look at it and forget to respond, which happens to all executives.
Hmm.
We don't know if you need to follow up 7 times, 8 times, 10 times, whatever the number is right now. But with the phones, if someone picks up, you say it, they can say, I'm not interested, I'm interested, but
Hmm.
it needs to change this way. Something that's interesting, especially we see with sales leaders, is sometimes people want to correct the script. They
Yeah.
literally tell us, like, this script is not great because of
Hmm.
XYZ reasons. It's like a 15-minute phone call from a sales leader telling us what resonated, what didn't resonate, which is really cool to see.
For sure.
And I think another really cool thing that we do is SDR sending us good calls and bad calls every single day.
Yep.
So essentially our SDR send Alex and I calls that they have made that day with like context notes. There's something went well in this call, or
Yeah.
I couldn't answer this question. I think that also helps me. I'm 2 steps removed from the team.
Yep.
That's basically, I can see what's going on in the market every single day,
Yep.
which is really cool.
Yeah. Every day. Just like the daily role play, it is required for every SDR. Just like the A's are required to send gong calls over to you, Amir, SDRs are required to send over cold call recordings. And this is not to just add on another task on top of the already full plate. It's just that the common go-to is have a once per week call teardown session. How is that enough? You know what I mean? And that's the team getting together, listening to calls and talking about it. That's great. And you should still do that once a week. We do. But making that a requirement to provide one good call, one bad call, why you think it's good, why you think it's bad, and what you could have done to improve better for the next call, that gives a chance for the SDRs to sit down, review their calls for that day, and analyze, which most reps unfortunately are not doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just goes back to cold calling is our best channel. We gotta do everything we can to empower the team to become the best 1% cold callers. But speaking of the best channels, I think we booked the most amount of meetings with email today in the longest time. It's hilarious. It just all happens at the one time. Everybody just wants to respond. I think we had one meeting booked with on LinkedIn today, and then three or four meetings booked through email just now. It's weird.
Yeah. And then the other aspect of that is also when you do cold teardowns, it's usually the good calls. Like no one wants to open up a good. I mean, it's the same for AEC. No one wants to open up like a horrible demo in front of everyone.
Oh, yeah.
It's usually what went good on this call or like this demo, and then what can we learn. I always say the same thing to our AEs too. If it's a bad call that you want me to review, send it in the private channel. If it's a good call, send it in new business Slack channel so that everyone can see. And if it's a bad call, I can review it and then we can improve it and we can all learn from it. What you said too. If you do a weekly teardowns, everything is great. You don't really get to see the bad calls or like bad con calls, and no one has time to review all the call recordings.
And then that bad call that they send over with their small, concise analysis, that's something that you can start working on immediately on the daily role play the next day.
Yeah, with the team.
Yeah. And so it just works like this machine of constant training, cold calling in the market, and it's like this loop. So you can only improve at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of creating a really good call culture, one of the essentials of that is GTM operations. And you also recently changed your title to head of sales and go-to-market operations. And the feature of outbound and feature of sales, how do you see go-to-market operations, the role? What is next in that? What do we do with it?
My personal belief is if you want to become an extremely effective sales leader, you have to become somewhat technical. I'm not going to be delusional and call myself a GTM engineer. A lot of people after learning a little bit of Clay, but a lot of the stuff that you didn't have to learn about or know about before as a sales leader, I believe it's can become more important 6 months, 12 plus months down the road. Because if as teams bring on AI even more and you have GTM engineers rarely will, maybe 1%, you'll find a GTM engineer that had a very successful sales background, made the shift over to learning about Salesforce architecting, building email infrastructure, the code SQL. Shout out Victor, our GTM engineer. Rare, right? And so they're very capable of building the systems, but they need guidance on what's ICP, what's not, especially if you're looking to build out end-to-end automation. That guidance can only come from either the reps in the trench, which is not the best use of their time, then it's going to have to at least come from the sales leaders, right? But you can't really work in perfect unison if you at least don't know a little bit about their world. And yeah, you have to get uncomfortable. I remember we were making the migration from HubSpot to Salesforce last Q4. That's the problem with working at a big company or starting at a big company. You're spoiled, right? Shout out Edwin Lau from Carta, if you ever see this, but he was probably very annoyed at me, right? Every time I needed something, Slack Edwin, hey man, I need this report, I need this dashboard. Didn't know how to touch anything. But coming here, I joined at a time when we didn't have anybody from RevOps or anybody to handle the CRM side of things. And so you're forced to learn. And then I very quickly realized as we start to build Project Nova that, holy crap, this is only as good as the people that are architecting it, but the people that are primarily tasked to architect it don't know anything about our ICP,
Sales.
sales. So it doesn't make sense. So you have to work as a team. You have to learn.
Do you see a lot more companies adopting like a go-to-market operations team or like real engineers working in go-to-market side?
100%. 100%. It's at this point, I think it's still too early, but as more and more companies adopt augmenting their sales reps, whether it be with internal workflow automations or the full adoption of AI, how are you going to compete? Like for not just with product, like for the engineering team, like you cannot compete. And for example, if our competitors, for example, if they're running the traditional SDR model and their SDRs are banging out, for example, 50 on the high end, 80, 125 dials a day, and our reps are banging out, for example, 400, 500 dials a day, and they're booking 2 meetings per day at least, bare minimum, with a 50K ACV, how are you going to compete?
Yeah.
We're always going to be 2-3 steps ahead. And so I think as more teams adopt this, people will start to realize that it's going to become a given. It's like people can't fathom not having an SCP today. Imagine going back to pen and paper or like Google Sheets. Yeah, I think it's just going to take some time, but for sure.
What are some use cases of AI that we use day to day?
Full-on account research is the biggest part. I know our entire AE team utilizes that. But for us, it's a little bit different. I think with end-to-end automation, there's always been traditionally, there's been 6 steps that have always taken up so much time, whether it be for a full cycle rep or for an SDR. That's step 1, finding the ICP account and then finding the ICP contact. Now you got to find their contact data. And then you got to make sure that the data has been enriched properly in the CRM. And that assuming if everything's not plugged in correctly, having to have the concern that it's not getting correctly synced over to outreach, stuff like that. And then ultimately getting into a sequence. And then getting into a sequence, then you can start engaging. And that typically takes 70% of a rep's day before you can actually spend 20, 30% minus lunch and all that kind of stuff, bathroom breaks, 20% in make revenue generating activities. That's crazy. But again, it's going to take some time, but it kind of goes back to when our team's going to fully adopt this. Our team is now spending about 70, 80% of their time revenue generating activities. People, I think, are going to catch on. But going back to your question, full on account research, generating the list, right? So identifying the account, definitely take a step further to be able to refine those lists. Let's just say we're bringing a new product to market based off the learnings that we're getting, how we can be able to refine the list. Don't just sit there and try to figure out yourself. Definitely leveraging AI has been huge for that for me and Vic.
Yeah, also I think one of the biggest applications of AI was expanding the title list. Anyone selling to marketing or sales organizations would know there are 10, 15 different ways of calling yourself. There are lots of weird titles. And when you want to actually build a list, it's really hard to differentiate between go-to-market operations to sales operations and market operations. It's just simple drop-downs is not really enough.
Yep.
So we built a prompt which basically brings all of the titles that we need and then differentiates between them based on our ICP. And we were able to expand a list by 70, 80%. That was the biggest unlock. Before that, we thought our ICP wasn't big enough. I think that was the major improvements in our process.
Unlocking the TAM was huge. Yeah. And there's account TAM and there's also contact TAM. Contact TAM being super important if you want to run end-to-end automation. But anybody that sells into sales personas, generating a list for sales is by far, I think, the hardest.
Yeah.
You have SDR leaders and then you have BDR leaders that call themselves, for example, business development managers. For a lot of companies, they're ICs. Strategic account executives, you have a combination of them that are 50% customer facing, 50% that are new business. You don't know. And so you cannot sit there and try to generate like a list of like 4,000 contacts, for example, and try to read their LinkedIn. And so running that through AI has been huge. Again, shout out Vic.
I know that both of us have a strong opinion about where SDRs should sit in.
Yeah.
Is it marketing or is it sales? What do you think about that?
My personal belief, 100% sales. 100% sales. Reason I say that is because the job is getting exponentially more difficult. To be able to maintain a high caliber team, it only makes sense to have the person that's leading the team to have been there, done that, for example. Again, this is nothing against the marketing org, anybody in marketing, but it's just cold calling itself, whether it be 10 years ago or 20 years in the future, it's always going to be a hard job. It's always it's a feeling that it's always going to suck. But when you have leaders that have done that and understands like how it feels to get smacked on the phone, it's just a different type of leadership is what I feel. But I understand why a lot of people have strong opinions on why marketing makes sense, because they're both in the game of generating demand. But it's just it's just, that's my strong opinion.
Yeah, I 100% agree that SDRs should just sit under sales. I agree with you. I think the other aspect is too is SDRs naturally, especially the top SDRs, want to become AEs. If you want to become AEs, you need to be talking to AEs, talking to AE leaders,
Yep.
talking to AE managers, talk
Yeah.
to people who became who went from SDR to AE, which are all in the sales org.
Right.
So you need to join the forecast meetings. You need to join the role plays with them. You need to do all of that stuff
Yeah.
so you can learn on the job. I think marketing, the main point for marketing, like SDR sitting on the marketing, is a pipeline generation function. And marketing should own the entire pipeline.
Yeah.
I think it's becoming more and more like a team sport. A lot of different teams, a lot of AE teams actually want to self-source their deals, want to become like a pipeline generation team as well.
Yeah.
I think just if you're an SDR and sitting on the marketing, it's also, I think it's extremely hard to see like the progression in your career at that specific company. It might be fine. It's like a company where you work and you learn and I don't know, you bring a lot of pipeline and you move on to a new company and then start as an SDR again. But I think the transition from SDR to AE is extremely easier, and also you get to learn a lot more if you're sitting on your sales.
100%. Yep. Yeah. You just rub your shoulder with the people that you want to become more frequently.
Yeah.
It's just a different dynamic. Yeah.
I think one case where you can sit on the marketing but still learn sales is if you're like, I don't know, a larger company where you can afford AE managers or VP of sales leaders to spend a lot of time, even if you're on the marketing, they still get to spend a lot of time with you because they have the time and the larger org. Maybe that might make sense. But if you're super high intensity, especially if you're a startup, I think it should definitely be sales.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. Any closing thoughts? Anything that you want to add to the conversation?
Well, that's the camera right there, right?
Yeah.
We are hiring.
How many SDRs were in details?
Right now we have 5 SDRs. We're looking to round out the team at 9. So we need 4 more SDRs. Pipeline's getting full, but if you watch this video from start to finish, you know exactly the type of individuals that we're looking for and the color of a company that we are. There's no right or wrong answer. I want to make that very clear. Just because you're a different color does not mean that you're more capable or you're incapable. It's just you're a different color, right? And so if you find yourselves gravitating towards a company like Hockey Stack and you find yourself that you can perform very well here and you can be able to learn and digest at the speed that we move, yeah, definitely reach out. 213-505-7586.
Yeah, we are hiring in San Francisco. We have 5 times in half a day. Top of the market. You can see all of that in our career page as well. No, Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you.